We are looking at finding the maximum and minimum of a function. In this case, we're talking about a quadratic function, which is in vertex form. We also want to state the domain and range of the function. So I mentioned that was vertex form. So if you recall, vertex form is f of x equals a times x minus h quantity squared plus k. And the reason why I tell you that is we want to recall that if we want to find the maximum and minimum, we're talking about the vertex of the function. And in this case, the vertex is really easy because we know the vertex is at hk. And since it's already in that form, then we can look at this and we can see that our h is this and our k is 1. But one thing we have to remember, on the inside of this thing, it shows it's a negative 3, but we have to flip the sign on the h whenever we do this. So our vertex is going to be at positive 3, and k, we don't change the sign on it. We leave it the way it is, so it's a positive 1. So my vertex is at 3, 1. So now I want to address the issue of finding the maximum and minimum, maximum or minimum value of the function. And vertex is going to be the key to that, but I have to know, first of all, does this parabola open up or open down? And so I kind of have to look at the graph of it. So I have to look at the letter in front of this a. That's where it comes into play on the vertex form. And in this case, notice I don't have a number here, but when I don't have a number, then that means that a is equal to 1. When there's no number present, remember it's understood to be there. In this case, it's 1, and it's also positive. So that tells me on the graph of this function, which looks like this, that's the parent function, then the vertex, which if I put it on a graph, this point would be 3, 1. And so because of the way the graph is, it opens up. And again, whether a is positive or negative tells me if it opens up or down. If it's positive, it opens up. If it's negative, it opens down. In this case, it opens up. Therefore, 3, 1 is a minimum. It's the minimum of the parabola. It's the minimum value, the lowest value on the parabola. Okay? So then, also in this problem, it asks us to find the domain and range. So let's actually go look at the graph for a minute. And I have a graph page here. And I want to graph this thing based on horizontal and vertical shifts because it is in vertex form. And I'm going to graph it based on the parent function, knowing that the parent function looks something like this. And the parent function, in case you forget what parent functions are, the parent function would be f of x equals x squared. And its graph would be like this. So now what I want to do is I want to graph this based on the parent function using vertical and horizontal shifts. So to do that, first of all, I'm going to look it inside. And that minus 3 tells me, first of all, it's inside the function with the x minus 3 quantity squared. It's inside the square, so it tells me it's going to be a horizontal shift. And on the inside, it's always opposite of the sign. Typically, we think negative goes to the left. But in this case, it's going to be opposite of that. So this point, the vertex, is going to be shifted to the right 3 places. And then based on this plus 1, that's outside the function. That's a horizontal shift. It shifts it up and down. And it works exactly the way we would think it would. It's a plus 1, so it's going to shift it up 1. So then the graph of this, based on the horizontal and vertical shift, is going to look like this. That's the graph. Now, it asked me about the domain and range. Well, the domain is the x and y values, or the x values for domain. The domain on any parabola is always from negative infinity to positive infinity. The range, on the other hand, are the y values. So if you look at this, the y values don't start until positive 1 on the y-axis. Notice below that, they don't exist. But then they do exist above that with the graph right here. So therefore, my range is going to start. I can name the point. So when I can name the point, I put a bracket there. That means that includes the point. It's going to be a positive 1 and it continues on infinitely upward, so it goes to positive infinity. So my domain is negative infinity, and the range is starting at 1 and goes to positive infinity.